last time I posted about my pond, I got a lot of opinionated comments, so let's read through some of them while I talk about why we're draining it yet again. Starting off strong with, do you know what a wildlife pond is? By definition, it's a shallow, sunlit water feature designed with sloping beaches and native plants to support biodiversity. It requires no fish, using aquatic plants and wildlife like frogs and dragonflies to create a balanced, low-maintenance ecosystem. Here are some examples if you need a visual. So I don't know how big I should have made it, but this one's about 25 by 3 feet maybe and 2.5 feet deep. Believe it or not, I wasn't planning on wasting a bunch of time, and I did do some research before we started this project. The original plan was to do something small like this, and we were going to use a plastic insert for that. Once we realized how bad the flooding from the neighbors was, we had to pull away from the fence, and I decided instead of having a freestanding circle in the middle, we would try to incorporate the pond more into our overall garden design, which is how we got to 25 feet. A lot of people were also concerned that we didn't use a black liner, and instead we used something that we already had. There are a few different ways that you can line a pond, but bringing hogs into our backyard was not an option for this. Our soil is basically clay, and it gave us a lot of problems during the digging process, so we could have technically added some different things to make it even more clay-like and hold the water itself. But we had this old tent canvas that we didn't use anymore, and it's the same thickness as a normal pond liner, which is 50 millimeters. We did test it, and it held water for about 2 months while we were digging the pond, and we first filled it up about 8 months ago, so it's held water pretty consistently since then. And to put everybody's mind at ease, I will not be putting fish or anything else into this pond. It's simply to bring wildlife into our backyard. You also need dragonflies and pollinators to count this as a wildlife pond, and I plan to do that by bringing in native plants. These are a few that I'll be planting around the pond, and these are some that I can plant directly into the pond to help support the ecosystem there, which will include mosquitoes, but if we're able to get dragonflies and frogs, then it won't really matter. I think the most commented thing was how many times did we have to drain the pond, and not including the drainage before we laid the liner. Let's count it up. The first time was because we didn't rinse our rocks before dumping them in, and looking back, this one probably would have been left okay because the dirt would have settled to the bottom. But once we added fresh water, it looked like this and stayed clear for the rest of the season. The second time we had to drain it is when we were starting it up for this season, and it was filled with sludge because we didn't cover it up over the winter. Some people didn't like that I called it sludge and didn't like that I was draining it, but this was a lot of leaf breakdown, and according to Google, you're not supposed to have that in your pond. Although I'm sure some bacteria is good to have, this is not an established pond yet, so I don't think any of this is good, and it stunk, so we got rid of it. The third time we had to drain is because we didn't think to cover the pond before we started spraying the bridge, and it ended up with a bunch of spray over. After we got that one cleaned out, I was fully convinced we were not going to have to drain it again, and the water was looking okay. We don't have our bog filter plants yet, so it's not super clear, but it was looking okay. But when my husband was packing dirt around our stones, he had our little helpers with him, and one of them decided to squeeze in between the wheelbarrow and the garden box, and the wheelbarrow ended up in the pond. Everyone was okay, which is all that matters, but that is why we are draining it today. And once it's cleaned out, it will be staying empty until we are completely done with dirt and there's no risk of anything happening. So if you think it's ugly and that we should have hired professionals, that's okay. We already have a little family of 3 ducks that likes to visit us morning and night, and even though we made a lot of mistakes, we're happy with the results. Well, what the results are going to be in a few months when everything starts to grow in. And if you need a good laugh, some of the comments on the original video are actually pretty funny. This one will stick with me forever.